Christopher Nolan has reached a place in cinema where he is no longer competing with other filmmakers. He is competing with his own legacy. When you have created films like The Dark Knight, Inception, and Interstellar, audiences do not simply expect another good movie. They are expecting another defining moment in modern cinema. So when I walked into the Odyssey, I literally thought, can Christopher Nolan still surprise us? Can a filmmaker who has already explored dreams, time, space, and war show us something that still feels new? And I'll be honest, after Tenet, I was not entirely convinced. When I watched Tenet, I felt the concept was brilliant, but somewhere beneath its many layers of complexity, I felt the emotional connection had faded. It became a film that demanded to be decoded rather than experienced. I admire intellectual storytelling, don't get me wrong, but I also believe the greatest films make you feel before they ask you to think. And that is precisely where the Odyssey succeeds. This is Nolan at his most balanced. He has not abandoned complexity, he has simply remembered that emotion is what gives complexity its meaning. This film does not simplify its ideas, it makes those ideas human enough for the audience to experience them. At its heart, Odyssey is not about mythical creatures, gods, or impossible adventures. It is about consequences. It asks a timeless question: what does victory truly cost? The destruction of Troy is only the beginning. Odysseus wins the war, but he loses something far more important. He loses certainty. The certainty that victory makes a man righteous. The certainty that surviving a war means escaping it. From that moment onward, every storm, every island, and every impossible challenge feels like an obstacle that is providing a judgment upon the choices he has made. Nature itself becomes the storyteller. The seas refuse to forgive him. The gods refuse to forgive him. And his own conscience never allows him to escape. The ocean is not merely something he must cross, it becomes the physical form of everything he is running from. What fascinated me most was Nolan's portrayal of leadership. Odysseus is not simply the loudest man in the room. He does not lead through fear or authority. He inspires confidence, listens before he commands, allows disagreement without always seeing it as disrespect, and when necessary, he understands people so deeply that guides them towards the outcome without making them feel forced. But the film never allows his intelligence to free him from responsibility. Every choice has a cost. Every victory leaves something behind. And every command given by a leader becomes a burden carried by someone else. Odysseus may be capable of directing men, but he slowly discovers that leadership is measured only by whether people follow you. It is measured what happens to them after they do as well. Every island becomes another test, not merely a test of physical strength, but of character. One place tests hunger, another tests loyalty, another tests memory. Another tests whether a man who has spent years seeking power can finally surrender control. The journey home is never easy because this is not a geographical journey. Odysseus is being forced to confront the man he became during the war. The gods in this story are not distant. They represent forces beyond human control, no matter how intelligent, powerful, or courageous Odysseus might be. There are consequences that cannot be neglected away. The gods remember, the sea remembers, and the dead remember. The man who believed he could overcome every problem through strategy is forced to recognize that some deaths cannot be escaped through cleverness. This must be paid. When the story enters the underworld, the journey became even more personal. Odysseus is no longer merely facing monsters or enemies, he is facing his own memory. He is confronted by the people who followed him, suffered because of his decisions, and never found their way home. The underworld became more than a mythical place. It becomes the darkest part of his conscience, a place containing every truth he tried to leave behind. The film captures a truth that history has taught us again and again. Wars may end on the battlefield, but they never truly end inside the minds of those who survive them. As Odysseus watches his companions disappear one by one, every loss becomes another reminder that leadership carries a burden long after victory has been celebrated. The ghosts of his choices continue to travel beside him, refusing to be left behind. That is where the film found me emotionally. Not in its action, not in its spectacle, but in its humanity. One of the most beautiful aspects of the story is its understanding of redemption. Nolan does not present Odysseus as an untouchable hero. He presents him as a broken man, a man who doubts himself, a man who suffers, a man who slowly discovers that true strength is not found in conquering kingdoms. It is found in accepting responsibility for the lives forever changed by your decisions. Redemption is not single handed, it is something he must earn through pain, loss, and acceptance. The transformation gives the film its soul. Matt Damon delivers one of his finest performances of his career. There are moments when he says very little, yet his silence carried more weight than pages of the dialogue ever could. His expressions, his posture, and the quiet exhaustion in his eyes tell the story of a man carrying the unbearable weight of memory. He gives us a warrior who may still possess physical strength and whose spirit has been slowly worn by grief. The supporting cast is equally remarkable as well. Every performance serves the story instead of competing for attention. Visually, this is Christopher Nolan doing what he has always done best. The practical effects, the breathtaking scale, the cinematography, and the immersive sound design create a world that feels tangible, ancient, and alive. But the element that stayed with me long after the credits rolled was the music. The score does not simply accompany the story, it carries it. There are moments when the music reminded me of the emotional grandeur of the Gladiator or the quiet transcendence of Interstellar. It does not imitate either film, but it invokes the same feeling of timelessness, sacrifice, pain, and hope. It elevates scenes that are powerful enough and transforms them into moments that remain with you even after the screen has faded. This is a mark of a truly exceptional score. What begins as a journey across the sea gradually becomes the journey of a man trying to return to himself. Odysseus spends years looking for the road home, but the deeper truth is that he cannot return home as the same person who left it. The distance he travels is not measured in oceans, islands, or years. It is measured in everything he must lose before he understands what truly matters. And when finally he reaches home, the film reveals something deeply moving. Home is not merely a kingdom. It is not a throne, a title, or a piece of land. Home is the person who continued waiting when the rest of the world had already assumed you were gone. It is a family that preserved a place for you even when you no longer knew whether you would deserved to return. That gives the homecoming its emotional power. To me, that is also where the film completes its idea of leadership. Leadership is not authority, it's not dominance, and it's certainly not glory. Leadership is understanding human nature, it is accepting responsibility, and sometimes it is carrying the weight of choices that others made because they trusted you. The greatest leader is not the man who conquers the most territory, it is the man who finally understands the value of the people who followed him. For the first time in years, I felt Christopher Nolan had created a film that speaks equally to the mind and the heart. It challenges your intellect, it rewards your patience, but above all, it reminds you that even the greatest heroes are ultimately measured not by the wars they win, but by the humanity they preserve. The Odyssey is not merely an epic about ancient Greece, it is a meditation on leadership, guilt, sacrifice, forgiveness, and the long, painful journey back to oneself. For me, this is Christopher Nolan at his most emotionally mature. My rating for the Odyssey is 9.5 out of 10. It is a grand film without becoming emotionally empty. It is intelligent without forgetting to be human. And beneath the gods, monsters, wars, and oceans, it tells a surprisingly intimate story about a broken man attempting to find his way back home. If you have watched the Odyssey, I would love to know where it ranks amongst Nolan's extraordinary body of work. Does it rank beside Interstellar, Dark Knight, and Oppenheimer? Or has it become your new favorite? Do comment down.